welcome to this week's episode of Work the Left Side. I am joined by Joshua Kemper. He's not a little man, he's the big man of Pursuits. How you going, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm all good, dude. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for chatting. Anybody who watches the show knows I'm just a massive mark for British wrestling. I just love talking to people from all over, you know, whether they're aged veterans, OGs, guys who are absolutely just smashing it up over the last few years, you know, stars of the future. It's all good. And yeah, obviously a lot of guys I'm talking to at the minute, I've kind of got in contact with or I've been talked about because, again, I'm just a massive fan of Pursuit. So I'm trying to get a spotlight on them, trying to get a spotlight on all the talent that they have. And obviously that's where you fall into my, you flagged up on my radar straight away because of Pursuit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll tick the generic boxes in a bit, but we'll get Pursuit out of the way first because that's the main thing that obviously brought you to my attention.
Yeah, sure. So I started training at Pursuit in September of last year. So at that point, I'd been already training for about 3 years. Been on quite a few shows, and then I'd known about Pursuit for a while because some of the guys that train there now had also trained at Grapple, where I used to train in Leeds. Yeah. So I'm from Leeds. I'm Leeds based, and I used to train at Grapple myself for a little bit. So I knew Nathan. He'd started training at Grapple, and he messaged me at some point. Well, during lockdown, basically when Grapple was shutting down, and he mentioned that he wanted to start his own school and all this kind of thing, and asked me if I would be down for it, and I said yes. I was a bit slow on the uptake of that, mostly because of my own anxieties about going to somewhere new, to be honest. So I felt a bit guilty about that, but as soon as you get down there, it's such a welcoming vibe. And it would be easy to have somewhere like that where you're not actually like learning, where everyone's just having a good time, but you're not really progressing. But it's not that at all. Like I feel like I've come on leaps and bounds from being at Pursuit, and you're training with people that are on like Progress, Rev Pro, Tidal, True Grit, like shows that I would love to be on at some point. So you can't help but get better. Like it's just a fantastic place, and yeah, I've got a big lot of love for Pursuit.
Yeah, I can kind of get that based on, you know, I mean, I know I mentioned before, you know, they're absolutely on point with the social media game. Like you see the TikToks and you see you guys in the ring going through stuff on TikTok or on Instagram, and it does look like a genuinely awesome place. Apologies, when you said Nathan, obviously you meant the other Nathan, but just when anybody says Nathan, I think Nash. Apologies, that's why stupid smile on my face. I'm still thinking of I did an episode with him last week, and the dude just absolutely broke me. So I'm just
he's a very funny man.
Oh, he is. But yeah, I kind of get that vibe from Pursuit. But obviously, as you said, you're a Leeds guy. I've seen you rocking the Leeds United shirt a few times for your sins. Yeah, obviously, I'm based in Morley. I'm a Leeds guy. Well, I'm a Nottingham guy living in Leeds, but you know, it's my second home. I embrace Leeds. And yeah, Grapple is another one that's very close to me, just because I like James Carr and all the guys that used to work through Grapple. So, yeah, you said it's not just Pursuit. Obviously, you're not, you know, a one-trick pony. There are other promotions, other shows, but keeping it up to date at the minute. Yourself and Alan Kay had an absolute banger of a match recently.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. So I'd known Alan from training for probably about 4 or 5 months because we were running on different schedules, and then I started coming to some of the Saturdays, and he tends to do those ones. So we'd met a few times, and immediately you can tell when someone's like good just straight away. Like it doesn't take much to notice that someone's good at wrestling, and I was like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. And then there'd been some plans for the next PPW show, but they'd kind of been delayed. And then Liam just came to me and said, "Oh, how do you feel about working with Alan?" Because we'd had a bit of like back and forth on Instagram, just kind of working, that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely love to do that. I think he's brilliant. So yeah, that was the last match at the last PPW. We've got another one coming up this Sunday. But that was the last one. And yeah, not enough good stuff to say about Alan.
Yeah, it's been on the show before when I was talking to him. I generally kind of definitely got that vibe of he's just a very nice human being kind of thing. And
Yeah, it's funny. He's like the misery king, but like everyone likes him.
he said, to be fair, he's only miserable when he has to wear leather trousers. That was his
Oh,
excuse.
fair.
You can't fault him for that, really. So you say you got a show coming up on Sunday. What's the crack with that? Who are you going to be kicking the shit out of?
So I'm back up against Music Man, who I faced a couple of shows prior, before I was the champion. I beat him last time. I'm going to beat him again. It's just how it goes. I'm pretty good compared to most.
To be fair, you wouldn't have the belt if you wasn't. So
That's it. So what can I say?
Talking about the belt, just I was going to bring up at some point, but yeah, you just mentioned it. Obviously, First Pursuit is coming up in September, I believe. Obviously, the first proper show. It's got to be nice. Obviously, not to jinx you. Fingers crossed. You're still champion when that show comes about. Yeah, man, you're the champ. You're the face. You're going to be the face of the show.
Yeah,
How's that feel?
It's a little surreal, because if you look at that card, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't even belong on that card. Like, there's so many good wrestlers on there. And I was like, I'm just happy to be involved. Whatever capacity I'm in, fantastic, because there's some really like top level wrestlers on that card. So it's going to be an amazing show. It's on my birthday as well. So the big 3-0, unfortunately.
Wow. Must have walked an advertisement for Oil of Ulay, dude. I would have pegged you about mid-20s at a push. So, I thought being a Leeds United fan was meant to be a hard life, but obviously it's not had its toll yet. So yeah, obviously prior to Pursuit, let's tick the generic boxes. Have you been into wrestling since you was a wee little nipper? Is it something you got into when you was in high school? Prior high school, did you do the normal thing of liking wrestling until you got to about 14, drop it off for a few years, and then pick it back up again?
Nail on the head, pretty much. So I don't know how I got into wrestling, to be honest. I don't remember like walking into the room and it was on, that kind of thing. Some people have that story, but I know in 2001 was when I started watching, or maybe the very back end of 2000. I have some very vague memories of watching it with my mum, who's not particularly a wrestling fan. She just used to watch it, I think, with me. And then Royal Rumble 2001 was on Channel 4, so you could actually just watch it for free. And I had that on VHS, and I must have watched that 1,000 times. Like, Kane was my guy. I was devastated that he didn't win that match. And that was kind of like, from then on, I was just obsessed. Every week I was watching as much as I could. We didn't always have Sky Sports, but I'd always be watching Sky One, keeping up with SmackDown and stuff. And then sometimes my grandparents would like record Raw for me because they did have Sky Sports. So yeah, as much as I could take in, I was doing. And then obviously you get a few years down the line, TNA comes across, and they were on like Bravo, I think, at the time. So I started to watch some of that. I was on and off with TNA. I wasn't a TNA diehard, not to say they didn't have good quality. There was just a lot of wrestling going on, isn't there? Like, it's hard to watch it all. So that was my kind of bedding in to like the culture of wrestling. And like you said, I get to about probably sometime in high school, it's like not cool to like wrestling anymore. So I half stopped watching and half just stopped talking about it, but kept watching. So I was in and out during those years, but for the most part, I at least knew what was going on, even if I wasn't watching it every single week. But then when I think I was 21, I started training at Grapple for the first time. I trained there for about 5 months and then got quite a bad trap injury. Just an awkward landing from like a drop kick. It was nothing that anyone else did. It was just all on me, to be honest. But that really messed me up. I couldn't do anything for like 6 months. In terms of like just anything in the gym. I couldn't run, it would hurt. Sometimes it comes back now, to be honest. It's not horrendous. I'm not like, this isn't a cry for, pity, but it's just a long-standing injury that put me out for a bit. And then I kind of just stopped wrestling for a good amount of time after that, because mostly anxiety again. Like, I wanted to get back into it, but I couldn't push myself to do it. And if you see anything of Joshua Kemper. He's quite upfront about anxiety, depression, this kind of stuff. That isn't just me saying that. That is real. That is like from the soul. I can remember being anxious from the age of about 7, so it's not unusual to me. So something that's been quite nice since my time at PPW, I've tried to be more like character based doing stuff. And something that I was mostly worried when it came to wrestling about my ability to be able to talk, because I think I'm fairly athletic. Let other people can decide what they want. I'm obviously a big guy. I'm like 6'5". I'm not a genius, but I'm intelligent enough. So I was like, I feel like a good basis, but I was worried about the talking because I'm so shy and I'm so quiet. But then when you get into that situation, you've either got to do it or not. So like that first time PPW, maybe like, what are we on now? 18 is just gone. So it's probably like PPW 14, 15, something like that. I decided I was going to cut a promo. And Liam was like, yeah, cool, go for it. And I did. And it was a bit all over the place. I was nervous and I was kind of walking around a bit and not able to stand still. But what I was saying resonated with people, and people were like, that was really good for like your first proper promo. And I was like, oh, that's great to hear, because that's the one thing I was most worried about, being able to kind of get a charismatic promo. And I'm not saying I'm like a 10 out of 10, but I'm not a 1 out of 10 either. So
you got to do it to get better at it. And like you say, taking that first step at doing it is the hardest thing. I mean, obviously I do this, once or twice a week where I talk to, you guys. You see me when I'm not doing this, I barely say a word. I'm the guy in the corner who doesn't really talk. I'm like, I people watch. I don't interact all that much.
yeah.
So I totally sort of understand, just the fear, man, just for being able to get up there and do it. And kudos to you for doing it. But I think it's amazing how many people will relate to that. So you're already onto a winner, because the audience have got that connection with you then, and it's like, okay, yeah, I totally get where it's coming from. And if you do kind of sidebar every now and again, they know why, they'll understand why, and it's part of the character as well. And it's genuine in that sense.
Yeah, well, I always thought it was a good idea because maybe someone is doing it, but I haven't seen it, this kind of character. I know there's people that do other things, like you've got like Malachi Black or like Bray Wyatt, where they're kind of occulty, but there is some elements of mental health stuff going on there, but it's quite different to like my approach. Mine's more grounded in reality, whereas they're a bit more like supernaturally kind of stuff. So yeah, I thought it was a good idea, and it's like the old cliche of, if you're going to be a wrestler, you turn yourself up to 11. Well, I'm not even at 8 yet. I'm at about 7, so I've got I've got some more to give.
And you're already the champ. So, dude, I mean, God knows what it's going to be like when we'll seeing you like all over the country when it's turned up to 11. So, like I say, like you started training like 9 years ago. Then, obviously, the trap, the injury. Because I think you're one of those guys where you've probably been around longer than people realise. But because of X, Y, and Z, it's kind of been patchy. And it's only been in the last 2 or 3 years you've kind of got that momentum.
That was it, yeah, really. Like after that trap injury, I tried to come back. I was like, for this and other things, I was at therapy, and I was like really trying to like work towards being able to put my foot through the door. Like the first time I came to any wrestling training, it was at Grapple in like when I was 21, and I was so nervous at the time. My like anxiety kind of manifests itself in like nausea and like headaches, and when you're trying to do quite intense cardio, that's quite problematic. So about halfway through the session, I was like, I can't do anymore. I'm going to throw up. Like I had to just stop. But I came back, and then it was an uphill battle. But one of my friends came with me, my friend Matt. That was a really nice thing that he did, because he's a wrestling fan, but he never set out to be a wrestler or anything. He just said, oh, would it be helpful for me to come along? And I was like, actually, probably yes. And it was. It got me through the door. But to be fair, this was at Grapple with Marty Jones, and I hope he doesn't hear this, because I feel like he might have softened a little bit in the last few years in terms of how much cardio he does. But back then, it was horrendous. Like he was really putting you through the ringer. And even my friend was like sitting down like, I don't know about this. It's not for me. But it was hard work. But yeah,
it's the old school mentality, though, isn't it? You know, like you read the books of like all these old school wrestlers, or like I used to be, well, I'm still a fan of like William Regal, but you hear about his training regimes and make himself do 1,000 Hindu squats or something like that, and you just like,
yeah.
Gee. But yeah, it's
Well,
not a walk in the park, but yeah, it's just standard for these guys.
he was trained by Marty, or retrained. I think he puts it. So I think he does some prior training. Then Marty was like, "No, this is how you do it." But yeah, that was the start. And then I had that break. I tried to get back in. I remember times I was sat outside the Grapple. They moved facilities after a while because the first facility was quite dingy, to put it nicely. The great bunch of people, fantastic workers and stuff there, and like great trainers and stuff. But like the actual facility was a bit run down, and then they moved to a much nicer one. And I remember like being sat outside, and I just started crying because I just couldn't make myself go in. I was so anxious about it, but I ended up a few years later moving to the Northwest for work, and that's where Marty had a school. So I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to force myself to go. And again, it's like that first bit of like, I'm so anxious. This is really difficult because I'm so anxious, and then I'm anxious about being anxious. Yeah. So it's really annoying and frustrating. But I pushed through that, and then that was it. Really, from there onwards, I've not really looked back. That was 2019. I got back into it properly, and like midway through 2019, and yeah, it's been a slow grind. Obviously, COVID and stuff didn't help anyone. But the last year or so, like I really do feel like I've started to hit my stride. I've got a lot to learn still. I'm under no illusions about like where I am in the scene of wrestling, but I feel like I've improved a lot, and that's in no small part down to Liam. To be honest, he puts a lot of time and effort into everyone that comes to Pursuit, and as well like that character side that I just didn't have before really. Marty's training is fantastic. For like the fundamentals and like the world of sport style, but doesn't go too much into character stuff. Whereas like Liam's like, we're doing a full 3 weeks of character stuff only, and it's like, okay, this is different. I'm gonna have to learn right now. And then I feel like it's been a huge benefit to me, to be honest.
It is, because I mean, like say, it's it just makes you stand out. You develop a character. Obviously, I had Axel on a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I was like probably one of the most outlandish characters at Pursuit, kind of thing. The whole freak show and everything like that. Obviously, he said he wanted to recruit you into the freak show, just to forewarn you.
He did. Axel's fantastic. He's like, he's such a nice guy, and also absolutely hysterical. Like the last PPW show, I was actually belly laughing at the stuff he was doing in the middle of the show. It was something else, man. You need to see him live.
It's character. I mean, well, hopefully I will. At some point, maybe I'll venture down to Leeds, or I'll get up there in September. But again, it's the character side of things. He was on about like training, working the character, trying this, trying that, not being stubborn. Not being like, if that's not working, right, forget it. We'll go on to something else. I'm not gonna make it work. I'll admit defeat, and we'll crack on to the next thing. Or try something different.
So I listened to that podcast and I heard him say that. And I was like, I've kind of latched onto this one idea and I'm not going anywhere else with it. So I've gone a very different way. But it's true to me. So I was like, I think I can make this work.
Yeah, that's it. In fairness, I mean, when you're being like, the clown kind of character, there's lots of ways to go with it. It can branch out in many directions. Yeah. When you're playing a character, like you sort of said earlier, that's you kind of turned up to 11. You've kind of got more of a narrow road. You can't really veer off anywhere. There's probably little bits you can fine tune, but the core foundation of it is what it is. That's not changing. We've just got to make it, find a way to tweak it.
Yeah, that's it. Like, I don't foresee any huge changes in terms of where Kemper's going. It's more the nuances that I'm working on, to be honest. Yeah. And again, it's something that I'm trying to improve on all the time. But being tall, being a presence, having just that kind of monster persona, it's hard work. Partly because there's not a lot of heavyweights in the UK. There is actually. So at Marty's gym, there's a lad called Kane Taylor who's been training for like 10 years and he's 18 or something, which is absurd. He's fantastic. I'm sure you'll be seeing him all over the place before too long. He's actually 6'7", believe it or not. So he's taller than me, and I was like, okay, this is different. I'm not used to looking up to people. But apart from that, there's not a lot of big guys. So even like the heavyweights that we do have, they're not mega tall. So like someone that I've trained with is Rampage, and he is phenomenal. Everyone talks well about Rampage because he's just brilliant. He knows what he's talking about. He's such a nice guy. Also from Leeds, which doesn't hurt. And he's not. I'm a good few inches taller than Rampage, but he is wide. He's a very built man.
I think his thighs are bigger than most people's torsos.
For sure, yeah. But working with, so I've done some like seminars with Rampage, a couple of ones that were like over a weekend, and one that was over a 5-day stretch. That was incredibly hard on the body. There was quite a range of people there in terms of like ability levels. I was one of the newer people at that point. This was back in 2019, so I was still quite new. But we had some great workers on there, like Miles Kamen, Dave Graves, who's stopped now, but he was very good. Adam Maxted was there, a few others. So there was like quite a mixed ability class. So it was good to learn again from really good wrestlers. But by the time we got to day 5, everyone was just broken. Like we'd had a few people drop out. Everyone was covered in cuts and bruises, and it got to like midday, and Rampage was like, "Should we just do promos?" And we were like, "Yeah, I think that's a good idea."
Please, God, please. But yeah, Rampage is up there. Various people that I've spoken to have basically just been like, I think it was even Liam sort of said, like, without a shadow of a doubt, the best wrestler in this country, if not Europe, closely followed by Nathan Cruz kind of thing. You know, there's guys that are held in such high esteem. Yeah, Rampage is one of them. As you say, Leeds boy. Glad to see him back on the scene. Obviously, shame about NXT UK, but as a fan and as workers, you guys, benefit from getting to work with, and I get to benefit from seeing. So glad Rampage is. Yossi, I'm trying to think of timeline wise then. Did you ever go up to NGW, do any training?
No, I was quite locked in. When I first started, I was quite locked in at Grapple, and then it was only really I was training with Marty, and that was it for quite a while. I did that seminar with Rampage, but by and large, I've only really trained with Marty up until September when I started training at Pursuit. Although recently I did do a seminar with Nathan Cruz, and that as well was fantastic. Like his brain's on another level. We didn't actually do that much physical stuff. There was a lot of talking, but I was like, this was fantastic. This was so good. Like I would do this every day, and I think I'm going to try and get down to Eva as soon as possible, to be honest. It's about an hour and a bit for me. So it's not super close, but it's not super far either. So I'm going to try and get there.
It's not something you want to do every day, but every now and again, very doable and well worth, the time. So you mentioned obviously being a big guy, 6'5". You mentioned Kane was your boy back in the day. Do you find yourself watching guys like, I don't know if you watch AEW now, but you got like your Luchasaurus. Obviously you got Lance Hoyt kicking about, Lance Archer, sorry. Obviously Kane back in the day. Do you kind of have favorite big guys to watch to try and pick up on stuff? Do you just watch them as a fan, or do you sit there and be like, I could do that?
A bit of both. So I definitely still watch as a fan. In terms of studying wise, I do particularly watch Kane because he does do that monster persona. Particularly like after he's just been unmasked. That's what I've been trying to learn from. Like, how does he move around? How does he interact and stuff? Because a lot of the big guys, the other ones that you mentioned, they're like more modern style, where there's more fast paced, there's more athleticism and stuff, which is great to watch, but it's not really the monster style that I'm trying to do. I like to throw bits of that in because it shocks people that big guys can do it as well. Maybe not as pretty, but we can do it. But in terms of study, I've been watching quite a bit of Kane. I'm going to try and watch some Abyss. That kind of aesthetic is what I'm going for, really, more so than like the more modern style.
That was my next name I was going to say. Was last you mentioned TNA as well, sort of diving in and out of it. But for me, Abyss was a very underrated big man. His movements, he was very fluid, but very sort of like just monster and clunky with it as well, kind of thing. It was very intimidating. Just seeing him in the ring was just like, oh shit.
Yeah, that's it. That's something I really am striving toward, like that intimidation factor, because it's a whole different character, and you don't get that with most shows. Like you're not always going to have like a monster heel. Like a good example at the moment is like Isaac North. He's doing that really well. But you don't see too many others, or at least I haven't seen too many others, where you have that kind of scary character rather than just someone that looks like they can be in a fight. Someone that looks like actually like there's something else about them that's a bit different. That it's a bit like, okay, let's give this guy a bit of distance, which is
Yeah,
what I'm trying to go towards.
That's it. Yeah, you won't want to be. You're only there because I'm being paid to be here, kind of thing. Otherwise, I'm out. I'm not staring at this guy.
Yeah, well, Kemper's remit is that he does wrestling because it gives him a free license to beat people up without getting arrested. So
it works, man. And it's like you say, it's again, yeah, it's just that. Well, that ties into the whole. If you got like the anxiety or anything like that, the best way to do that is just to beat the shit out of somebody, and it might make you feel a bit better. I'm not saying if you suffer from anxiety, go out there and beat the shit out of anyone, but in the wrestling world, it makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, but so in like. I can't remember. I had some pretty rough times mentally, like pre and post that first stint at Grapple. Pre, just because a lot of life stuff was going on, and then post, partly because I was trying to get back to wrestling. It was really, it took a lot out of me that I couldn't do it, and I was quite sad about that. But there would be times when I was like, at my lowest, where I'd be like walking down the street, and I was like, I wish someone would just start something with me so I could have a fight, which is stupid and ridiculous, but that's how I felt at the time. I was a lot younger, and I was just angry at the world. And I'm not anywhere near that anymore, but like it's not difficult for me to tune into that mindset because I lived that for like years. So that's why it's so easy for me to lean into this like character, because it's not really a character, it's me. Like it's me in different stages of my life.
That's it. So yeah, you've got that source, you've got that material where you can plug into, just memories, like say, to tap into when you need to become that person. And that is the best way to do a character, from what I've heard and from what I've seen. All the best characters you see when you talk to them, it's all based on experiences.
Yeah.
So
it's very difficult to be like the Undertaker unless you're just incredible at that sort of thing. Like if it's just you, like Stone Cold or people like that, where it's just them amplified, then it's a lot easier to just ramp it up than it is to be something completely different. Because every single interaction that you have in the ring, you have to think, how would my character do this, not just how would a wrestler do this. So you're constantly thinking about it, and yeah, if it's something that you're familiar with, it's 10 times easier.
That's it. That's why I've got all the respect in the world for people who become like somebody totally different, because like you sort of said, they have to second guess everything, and just they can't autopilot anything. It's all got to be turned on. Whereas, if you like say turn up to 11, you can kind of, I don't know. I was what say this one's easier than the other kind of thing, because both do obviously take skill and ability. But yeah, I think one's more natural.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, they still takes the skill. Like I say, like a year ago, I was doing the character, but not really doing a character. I was basically a silent wrestler, just going about my day, beating people up, and there was nothing else to me. And then I've really had to force myself to embrace this like louder, more vocal version of me. So it's not natural. So it does take skill and effort, and something I'm like trying to build upon and get better at. But yeah, there's definitely two sides to that coin, and you've got to be good either way.
That's it, definitely. But I think obviously, again, from what I've heard from speaking to people, just if anyone's going to be able to fine tune your promos, encourage you, give you that sort of gentle persuasion nudge to do it, pursue. Yeah, you're in very safe hands. And I think this time in 12 months, you'll look back and you'll be like, wow, you'll see a massive improvement, and you'll be happy with it.
Yeah, sometimes it's very easy to like put yourself down. Like whenever anyone has a match, I think we all have the same kind of reaction of, I should have done this better, I should have done that better. But then I look at like my last match compared to a year ago, and it's like not even close. It's so much better. There's so much more structure. There's more meaning. There's more character. There's just everything's better. So you sometimes have to just tell yourself, stop focusing on all the negative things. There are some good things in life. You're doing some things all right.
It's hard though, man. I totally get that as well, because it's like, obviously doing this, and I do like artwork and stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, I post pictures of my artwork just to try and get pops, just try and get some sort of endorsement, feeling of like, oh yeah, I am actually quite good at what I do. But it's always in the back of your head where you could hear 100 nice things, you hear one bad thing, and that's what you focus on.
That's
and
what
it's like,
sticks, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It's not just even from somebody else. You could look at 100 of your matches, enjoy 99 of them, but if you see one you didn't like, you've got to train your brain to be like, look, no, 99 were awesome. Forget that one. Whereas, because naturally your brain's like, I'm focusing on that one.
Yeah, well, in some regards, I do really value criticism if it's like constructive.
Yeah, constructive.
Because I feel like across the scene, everyone is like really nice that for the most part, obviously some people you're not going to get on with, but by and large, like I get on with most people. I'm not the loudest person in the room, but like if we talk to some me one-on-one, we'll probably be all right. And I think sometimes people don't want to upset you, so they don't necessarily tell you that you've done something wrong or this and that. And I actually would rather they did, because that's how you get better. And like you say, if someone tells you, oh, you did that thing great and did this thing great, I'm like, okay, well, what did I do bad? Because if I watch it back, I'll pick 10 things I did bad straight away. So it's really useful to have that. But I know what you mean. Like years ago, I used to do like YouTube for like gaming stuff. And I wasn't a big channel, like 1,200 subscribers. But you'd have people that would be like, you're the best YouTuber ever. Clearly I wasn't, but they would say like this kind of thing. And there'd be that one guy that's like, this guy's rubbish. And it would just ruin your day. Like, it's just like, I put all this effort in, this guy thinks I'm rubbish. What's the point? Like,
that one guy. But no, yeah, I totally agree with you with the criticism, because that's how you do improve, but it's got to be constructive. Somebody can't just criticize you and be a twat about it. They've got to be, like I always sort of say, I've got my opinions. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, but tell me in an educated way. Let's have a discussion about it. Don't be a twat about it. And I'm open for being corrected as long as we can talk about it and it's constructive. That's it, definitely. But it's finding that balance. It's always obviously nice to hear nice stuff, but yeah, you don't want people just to be saying nice stuff for the sake of it. You want it to be genuine. I'll be like, right, tell me one good thing, tell me one bad thing, and then you kind of level it out.
Yeah, it's like that. Sometimes I fall into the same thing as well, because I find myself in this position where, who am I to tell anyone what's good and bad? And I'm not a trainer. I am not that experienced compared to a lot of the people that I'm with. Like, if I spot something bad, I'm biting my tongue, because I'm like, oh, should I tell them to try and help them? Or are they going to think, who the hell does this guy think he is? So I end up just not saying anything, because I don't feel like I'm in the position to say anything. But maybe I should. I don't know.
That's it. I think it depends on the moment and the person. Obviously, if you're really close to the person and you get on really well, I think obviously you can tell them. Otherwise, it's in the back of your head. Is it my place to tell them? Somebody else will have spotted it, who probably in a better place to tell them than I am. So,
and who's to say I'm right as well? Like I might be wrong. Wrestling's very subjective for a start.
Yes.
So there's 10 ways to do any one particular thing. So it's just my opinion. So I tend to keep it to myself.
Yeah, to be fair, exactly the same. But touching on what you said there about, it's a lot of people I've spoken to over the last 12, 24 months has sort of said British wrestling at the minute is a lot more positive. Everybody seems to be supporting each other, elevating each other, because they kind of suddenly realised, well, if that promotion's doing really well or that promotion's doing really well, more people are going to be watching it. That means more people might be seeing me, X, Y, and Z. And it's a domino effect. Everybody's doing well.
Yeah, for sure. Like I get such motivation from the guys around me doing well. I sometimes feel like it comes across like not genuine, because like, why would you care this much? But it just makes me like really happy seeing other people do well, and then it's like, oh, I can do well eventually. Like I can be doing this thing. Like it's just awesome to see. Like I'm training with like Leon Slater. Like, come on, like the kid's unreal.
It's just, it still blows my mind. I think it was only a few months ago that I found out he was like 18 or something at the time, and I went,
it's depressing. It's very depressing how good he is and how much younger he is than the rest of us.
But Liam was on about him. I think he's been training since he was like 10 or something. I mean, so I mean, it's just become secondary. It's a very good job that he grew up to look the way he looks as well. Because he's the total package in that sense. He's not just got the skills; he's got the presentation. If he had started wrestling at 10 and then ended up only being 5'5" or something.
Yeah, it's more difficult. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's just one. Like, there's 10 other guys I could name. Like, if you're familiar with Planet Wrestle, they run shows in Leeds. They just had one this past weekend gone. I was helping out there, and like every single match was just great. It was like a family show, so it wasn't super serious, but it was just a good time. Like, people like Jack Bandicoot and Liam Slater, that was the main event. That was fantastic. Music Man was on with Nathan Black. That was super character based and just, again, fantastic. The whole card, top to bottom, was just really enjoyable. And these are all people I'm regularly training with, so it's great to be around these people.
That's it. I think as well, that's what Pursuit's got going for it now, is more and more guys that you train with or from that school are going out to different shows, which means that you can go with them, whether it's just to watch or help out. That then it's all a networking game. Is it?
Yeah.
You turn up at a show with somebody, you get to meet the next person, it kind of gets your face seen. If they're looking for someone at the next show, they're like, right, yes, we saw Joshua here last time, but let's get him on, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm trying to get more involved in stuff like that, and like more seminars and stuff where you're meeting new people and networking, as you say. But even still, like, genuinely, like, some of the seminars have just been fantastic. Like the Nathan Cruz one was brilliant. Prior to that, I'd just done one with Nigel McGuinness, which is mental. Oh, wow. And he was someone straight away that I did something bad. I did like a uppercut that was no good, and he was like, "That was rubbish," and I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you." How do I do it better?
There you go. Yeah. Why was it rubbish? How do we fix it? Sorted. There you go. So that's meant other Nigel McGuinness, man. That's craziness, because that's like, he is obviously like one of the modern day biggest names to come out of Britain, kind of thing. Huge career in Ring of Honor. Desmond Wolfe in TNA. Currently, obviously, then went to WWE, did a bit of commentary, and now is obviously with AEW doing commentary. So,
indeed. Will he come back out for that show at Wembley? That's my query. He looks in good shape.
He does look in very good shape, and I think you can never say never, can you? You know what I mean? Like, if you just said to me prior to Edge's return at the Rumble, several years ago, he'd been gone for like 10 years. He was never coming back. Bosch is back. Soraya's back. So the advancements in medical treatment, never say never, man. I'd pop huge if McGuinness had one more match, kind of thing.
Me too. And I don't have any inside information on this, by the way. I didn't ask him about this. I'm just saying he looked jacked when I saw him.
I thought I was going to have a Work the Left Hand exclusive. I was like, down it from the rooftops. Like, look, he's coming back. But yeah, man, give me Nigel McGuinness versus Zack Sabre Jr. or something at AEW at Wembley. Yeah. That'd be boss. And again, just going to these different seminars and just putting yourself out there. I know it must be difficult. There must be like hesitation for a brief second before you would go in somewhere new, based on what we've talked about and stuff like that. So that speaks volumes to me as well, man. That how far this whole wrestling thing is. Wrestling, it's like it's helping mentally as well as physically, kind of thing. It's just all around goodness. The benefits 100%. Of wrestling.
Like going back to what we said earlier, like in general life, I'm a very quiet guy. I am not the center of attention. I am not leading conversations unless one-on-one. I'm all right. If it's a group, you won't even notice I'm there because I just get really quiet. So when I tell people that, oh, by the way, I'm a wrestler, they're like, what? You're a wrestler? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, do you do talking? I'm like, yeah, I'm actually all right at it. The minds are just blown.
That's it though. It's just having that kind of like, we're feeling comfortable, but yeah, like in any other situation, you'd probably struggle to go somewhere new or go like interact with people that you've not seen before, or just one or two people. But thanks to the wrestling world, it's something you're finding yourself doing more and more often now, and probably obviously even being more comfortable doing it.
Yeah, well, I also think it's a great leveler to be pretend fighting with people in like barely any clothes. So like once you've done that, it's like, well, how can the situation be more awkward? It can't. So let's just be mates. Like,
It's pretty much the same sort of thing as like, if you're nervous at an interview, imagine everybody in their underwear.
yeah, except we are.
Yeah, that's it. And yeah, you're just throwing each other about. So it's like, you know what? Everybody's on a level keel.
Yeah.
There's no reason to feel intimidated or pressure or awkward about it. Let's just crack on.
We've all got at least one thing in common to talk about. So
that's it, exactly. But yeah, man, that's another thing that I just love. That's why I just think wrestling is awesome, because it does just give you that connection. You can go to a wrestling show and everybody there from any walk of life, you just start talking about wrestling and you can chat away for hours. You can just chat bollocks, and it's just like, yeah, that person's going to enjoy the conversation probably because it's about wrestling.
Yeah, and like wrestling is such a big topic. There's so many things you can talk about, like whether it's people that talk about backstage, people want to talk about current stories, 5-star matches. Like there's all sorts you can be talking about. A lot of like talking about the good old days and all this kind of stuff. There's a whole spectrum of stuff to chat about. So it's a great topic to have in your back pocket if you know someone else likes it.
That's it. But don't be one of those people don't be set in your ways. Talk about it, but be open to trying to have somebody change your opinion on something, because nothing is set in stone in the wrestling world. You're what you like, the next man's going to hate, but talk about it.
100%. Like
it just reminds me when people, not so much obviously British wrestling doesn't really have that tribal feel about it, but when you got the big promotions, you got the WWE marks who hate AEW just because it's not WWE, and vice versa. It goes both ways. It's like wrestling's wrestling. Good wrestling is good wrestling.
Yeah,
it's not
I've never understood that.
Yeah, you don't have to pick a team and stick by that team.
Yeah, you can like both. Like there's literally no harm, and if you don't like one, fine, doesn't matter. Like, why are you getting so angry about it?
Exactly. But again, that's what I'm thankful. British wrestling doesn't have. You don't get sort of like, especially here in Leeds. You don't get like true Brit fans hating on Tidal or vice versa kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do get some old like carny promoters that are still like, oh, you can't be running on this patch kind of stuff. But I think by and large we're moving away from that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously you don't want somebody coming in stealing all your costume, but as long as everybody works together and they can plan the shows, and like you sort of said, Planet Wrestling had their show on last weekend. Tidal have got a show on this weekend. Obviously you don't want both people putting shows on at the same time. That's a twat move. But yes, everybody works together. There's plenty of wrestling fans out there for everybody.
That's it. So when I was doing the seminar with Nathan Cruz recently, it was at Wrestling in Newcastle. That's the name of the promotion. They run like a family show, and they happen to be running on the same day that North were doing their like biggest show ever. That was pure coincidence. It wasn't intended. So they'd moved theirs a bit to earlier in the day, and with it being a family show and North being more adult, it was fine. Like you could go to both quite easily, and I think people did. But also, like, something I've noticed about the Northeast scene, they're super like good on promoting other companies. So like North are promoting Wrestling Newcastle, who are also promoting Prime, who are just plug in like the training schools and stuff. So like it's just great like to see them all working in unison and not against each other.
Yeah, because I mean it's like obviously here in Leeds, you look at the Tidal cards, you look at the True Grit cards, you look at Rise, Planet Wrestle. There's 50% of all those shows have got very familiar faces on. Everybody works the shows. So if you're bigging up that talent at somebody else's show, that just means that somebody might see them at that show, and then when they turn up at your show, that fan's going to come to your show.
Yeah, exactly. Like people have favorite wrestlers, and they'll go and see their favorite wrestlers. Like that's always going to be a thing. I remember going to a show because it had Walter on it before he was Gunther, and I was like, this was sick. It was him against Will Ospreay in Manchester, and probably the best match I've ever seen in person. It was unbelievable. That was an experience. But yeah, it's. I think we're in a good place in Brit Wrestling. It's definitely, I think, post the unfortunate events of Speaking Out, we got rid of a lot of the toxic people. And obviously, not everyone's going to have gone, because you can be toxic without being like an offender or whatever. But we seem to be in a better place, which is good. And a healthier environment from that perspective. That seems to be, from what I can tell, much, if not gone entirely, it's much smaller of a thing, and just generally bigging people up and stuff. It's a much better place.
Yeah, no, definitely, I totally agree with that as well. It's kind of like, as much as it sucked, it's had a positive impact in the long run because it pointed out everything that was wrong, and then
Yeah.
people have to change it, and they have changed it. Mindsets have changed. It's more of a level playing field now across the card for everyone, kind of thing. And yeah, I think, because people thought, oh, British wrestling is dead, blah blah blah. It's like, it could have been. Some people could have caved and buckled, but people didn't. People stood up, looked what was wrong, and changed it. And
Yeah.
I think British wrestling is the best it has ever been as it stands right now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, North, that show they just had 700 people there. That's mental. Like for a show in the north of England, never mind like England in general. Like I remember pre all this, Progress were doing quite big shows up here, but it was probably a similar level, but they were a much more long-standing company from what I know anyway. So for North to be exploding the way they are is just phenomenal. And yeah, even the rest of the Newcastle crowd was full. There was a good, I don't know how many people there, 200 maybe more. It was buzzing. The card was great, and everyone was happy. So wrestling is, like I say, it's just in a better place.
That's it. I mean, previously, I don't know, what, 8-9 years ago, you had your ICWs, you had your Progressors. They were obviously the big two, pulling in thousands potentially.
Yeah.
1PW
as well.
Before it went, obviously 1PW is back now. I think the last show they did at Doncaster was around about just over 1,000 kind of thing. Again, which is mental. But then, yeah, you've just put, even shows doing 200-300, it's still an achievement. It's still a good show.
Yeah, for sure. Like
just the energy.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just saying the energy is there, man. It feels electric at every show you go to.
Yeah, definitely. And so I haven't done many like massive shows. Like the biggest I had done was working for All Star last year. And I was just in the Rumble. I wasn't like any prominent part of the card or anything, but there was like 700 people there, and I was like, oh my God, I'm used to about 50. Like this is insane. I was very fortunate to be involved in that. I had 3 shows with them last year, and it was through Marty because he was good friends with Brian, and it was nice to have met him before obviously he sadly passed away. He seemed like a great guy. He was very friendly and polite to me and stuff. I didn't get too much interaction with him, but it's fair to say his impact on the scene is monumental. So it can't be understated enough what he's done for British wrestling, and they're still pulling in insane crowds like years after the World of Sport like era. Every single All-Star show is hundreds of people there, if not thousands.
And that's not even really done on the internet. They're really old school.
No.
They don't have any social media footprint. It's crazy.
Yeah. People just don't know that this is happening, and it's like, oh my God, like there's such it is a different style of wrestling, like the camp show style. But it's still valid. Like it's still entertaining people. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong.
Dude, it's to be fair, you speak to people who have done the camps, and you're talking about your Rampages, your Nathans. I was speaking to Ace about it a few weeks ago. He's done a few camp runs, and it's like key. Anybody who's working in England has to have been on at least one All-Star show to get that vibe, that experience. It's basically like a boot camp for wrestling. It's where you learn the foundations, you learn the basics by repetition.
Yeah.
And especially if you're doing character work, because obviously it's more family orientated. People are there because, it's part of the holiday package kind of thing, not really because they love wrestling. They're just there for a bit of entertainment. So you have to, go up a notch and be a very, very good guy or a very, very bad guy kind of thing.
That's it. And so like this morning, I was down in Skegness, and I did a show for Lion Wrestling Promotions, and that was a camp show. And they're fantastic, by the way. So they're running like quite big venues with a lot of people in, like consistently, all throughout the summer periods and stuff. But it is different. You have to be more vocal. You have to be a bit more pantomime to some regards. But we weren't silly with it. But like the crowd was eating it all up. Like I was on with Aaron, who actually owns the promotion, and like he's phenomenal. I can't say enough good about Aaron and Sabrice, his partner, who own it together. and it's just fantastic. And I was actually really looking forward to it because I haven't done a camp show since last year. And it's a very different vibe, but again, it's something you need to do. You need to be good at it. You need to understand how crowds work in different scenarios, and like it was just brilliant. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I'm glad, man, that you got to do, because that's the thing as well. Like, I think it's obviously a select few bunch of people who get to do that, to experience it. But anybody who does, credits it hugely with just development. They were a better wrestler because of it.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to go on these like summer holiday 6-weekers. Easier said than done when you've got a 9 to 5. But even if I could get a couple of weeks doing it, that'd be incredible. Whether it's with them, All Star, Mega Slam, there's like good companies that are running these shows all the time and pulling in big crowds, and it's just a fantastic learning experience, as we say. So it would be something I would definitely look to do, and it's different for me as well because I've, like I say, trying to be this monster heel. I was always quite stoic and not very silly, whereas like you've got to be a bit more silly because otherwise these kids do not care. So you've got to kind of really commit to it. And it's just great, and it's something we've actually been practicing in training as well. So it was great timing for me to have this particular show today.
Nice. But if you see a foam finger, just pull it, tear it up. Yeah,
That's
get some every time.
I got absolutely hammered with inflatables. Like I couldn't even get out past the children to get backstage. They'd like created a wall and they were just blocking me off, and I was like, "Referee, help me out!" Because what can I do?
Just grab the referee, hold him in front of you, and just barge. Yeah. Like it sounds like a lumberjack match, but the lumberjacks just all being kids and inflatables. It's like, right, no, I'm not getting out of the ring. I'm staying here. This is my safe place.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I had lost, so I was trying to make the gracious defeat exit from the ring so that Aaron could have his moment. But these kids were not having it, so I had to just dash through the middle.
That's awesome. But again, it's an experience. You'll learn that, and it'll just be, you'll get something from it and be like, hang on a minute, I can use that, or that's, something I can use in the character. And it's just, I don't think you get any bad experiences. They're just learning curves.
Yeah, there's so much different stuff to do in wrestling, and I have to credit Marty for a lot of this stuff. He is the one that's put me in contact with these people. A lot of the shows I've done outside of like training shows and stuff is because of him. I've done a show for WAW, which I had no right to be on that caliber of show, but I was. I worked for Tidal on their pre-show back in 2019, and I was very green. And it wasn't my best performance because I'd only just been doing it for less than a year. But, that was surreal because I'd been to Tidal as a fan, and I was like, and now I'm in the ring in front of these people. Like, obviously, they don't really care about me. They're not here to see me, but still, it was mental to me. It was mind-blowing. And then earlier this year, I went to Finland. That was like my first booking abroad. I was with Slam Wrestling. Fantastic, really professionally run. Starbuck, who owns and runs the company, is phenomenal. His knowledge is brilliant. He actually used to like train with Chris Jericho back in the day, so like he's got some pedigree. I think he's come from Canada, from that kind of Stampede era of like we're all just really good wrestlers, like whether you like it or not. And that was awesome. So like, yeah, wrestling abroad, wrestling all these places, it's all different learning experiences. So like that one abroad, it was in like a shopping center. So that it was people there that had come for it. There was people there that were just like shopping and milling around, and they were like, "What the hell is going on? Like, why are people fighting over there?" But it was something different. It was a new experience. The aesthetic of the venue was phenomenal as well. So it was just awesome. Like I can't wait to do more stuff like this. I'm hoping to get to as many like countries as possible, really.
That's awesome. And that must have been so far out of your comfort zone, just like wrestling in the middle of a shopping center. You'd just be like, dude, just like, also I'm guessing, like 2 or 3 layers. I'm guessing you guys were on the ground floor in the ring.
Yeah, so it was kind of weird. It was almost set out like a theater in a sense, because there was some like seating, I don't know what normally goes on there. Maybe they do other like entertainment things as well. But there was kind of like tiered seating. But then there was like a big balcony over the top, and there was just a lot going on. But it was awesome. I absolutely loved it.
Again, like I said, just another thing to put in the box and be like, right, okay, it's an experience, mate. It's like I said, that must have just knocked you, like not knocked you, but yeah, the comfort zone of just wrestling in the mall. I can't even imagine it, mate. I'm actually generally flabbergasted at the thought of even just just being like, no, I can't do this. Like, I'm out. No. But yeah, props for for doing it. That's
something else that was really cool about that. Sorry, we went for lunch on the day of, and we sat down, and I realized that there was about 10 of us, and we were all different nationalities. And I was like, this is just cool. Like, I love this. There's like Czech, Swedish, Finnish, Canadian, English. Like, there was a whole range of people, and I was like, this is just awesome. Like, wrestling's great.
Yeah, that's what wrestling is. So obviously you mentioned pursuits. I was looking through. I was trying to find a bit of information, just little bits and things to talk about. And I've totally lost my train of thought from what I was going to mention or the name of the company I was going to mention. But I did notice. I think it was in sort of March time. I think you had a triple threat tag match. It was you and Asylum.
Yes.
I can't remember. I know Jackson Hart was on there. I noticed his name because I've spoken to him recently, kind of thing.
That's Firestar.
Was it GAW or something like that? The
Firestar
promotion?
Championship Wrestling.
That's it.
So that is what is right behind me. My tag team championship belt from Firestar. Me and Asylum, the tag champs there. They're a new company, so that was their first show. Right. They've done, I think, one more since then, and they've got another one coming up soon in August in Ripponden, which is a really cool venue. I was at the last one in Ripponden, and again, it was full, and it was like bustling. The people were like super into it, and yeah, like Martin Kirby and people on the card as well. So again, it's a great learning experience. Martin actually came over to me at that first Firestar show. And he just said, just like a passing comment, really. It was like, "Oh, you had some good movement there," and I was like, "Martin Kirby said I'm good. Like, this is amazing." He wasn't saying like, "Oh, your match was brilliant." He was just like, "Oh, that particular bit you did quite well," and I was like, "Doesn't matter. I'm the best now. Like, that's it."
Like, that is really weird because when I was speaking to Alan, obviously Martin Kirby, awesome. Legitimately one of the best in the country. Obviously used to be part of a tag team called Project Ego with Chris Travis, and Alan Kay had a very similar story, but it was Trav that just like Alan was on a show, this, that, and the other. He's feeling a bit down, and just after his match, Trav just walked past him and says, "You've got really good movement, kid," and they just kept on walking, and he was like, "Yes." It's just that little comment.
It's surreal when you put these people on such a high pedestal. Do you even get like the tiniest little comment of like compliment is unreal. Like, and again, he wasn't saying that I'm some fantastic wrestler and blah blah, but it was just cool. Like,
yep, just the little touches, the little nice words. It's like I said, it's just it's if sometimes it's just enough to get somebody through the next week's worth of training, or to get them to go to training the next day, kind of thing, and be like, oh, if they're feeling a bit down on themselves, just that little one comment, like, fuck it, I'm going to training tomorrow. I love this shit again. So yeah. Dude, I can just see we're hitting the hour mark. That's absolutely flown by. Obviously, yes. First Pursuit's coming up in September. Obviously, have you got your tag titles defense coming up anytime soon? You want to plug?
So I think that might be October. I'm not certain. So they've got a show in August, but my partner is unavailable, and so am I. So it turns out we will be on that one. So I think the following show they were talking about October, but that's not set in stone as far as I'm aware. But it will be on my socials when it is. In terms of upcoming stuff, like this week I'm training at Pursuit tomorrow, and then on Friday I'm wrestling at New British Promotions in Sheffield. We've got PPW on Sunday. The next show that's the one against Music Man, and Squared Circle, where I also still train with Marty. He has a show coming up in August in Leeds at Belle Isle. So I believe it's August the 5th off the top of my head. So that'll be another one that I'll be at. And I like being in Leeds because it's the one time that I'm a good guy. So it's like it gives me like a different character to work on.
Oh yeah, well, I'll have to chat again at some point, dude, because yeah, I've not even gone into that kind of thing. Like if I'm working face, working heel, preferences, move sets, and things like that. It's a general conversation that I've had with a few people. I'm always interested to get everybody's kind of take on it. So there'll be a part 2 at some point down the line, if that's all right, and we will discuss that kind of sort of stuff. But yeah, obviously, I will tag your socials in on this when I upload it, post on Twitter. Obviously, give them on a follow. Keep an eye on shows coming up, especially around the Leeds area and Sheffield. Obviously, we've got pursuits. For me, there needs to be more promotions in Sheffield. It seems to be a huge city that's seriously lacking in local wrestling.
Yeah, and I also, on a similar vein, think there should probably be another training school in Leeds because it's a very big city and the loss of Grapple was quite big. And a lot of people went from Grapple to Pursuit, but not everyone can make that travel. So I think like Leeds is crying out for some training. But yes, I do agree. Sheffield needs more promotions and running shows and stuff. But hopefully, like New British Promotions, I said they were in there on Friday, so that's one that will be taking some of that, and obviously Pursuit themselves.
Yeah. Well, I think obviously Pursuit are quite happy being a school. From when I was speaking to Liam, they were saying that he ideally only wants to put 4 shows on a year at a push kind of thing. So it still needs a massive gap. Then hopefully that promotion. I'll look into them because I've not heard of them yet. So I'll do what I can do to get some eyes on the prize. Yeah, I like Sheffield. It's a good town, and if they can get some quality wrestling, fair play to them. Do you want to plug your socials? Do you want to plug anything else while we're here?
Yeah, sure. So I am the Joshua Kemper on all platforms. So I have that brand continuity. So TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, you name it. I'm the Joshua Kemper. So that's where you'll find me. Nice. And if you want a Kemper t-shirt,
there we go.
thejoshuakemper.bigcartel.com.
Right, I'll add that in the descriptions as well. So if we can get at least one person to buy a t-shirt after watching this, I'll consider it a success.
Me too.
It's been an absolute genuine pleasure. And yeah, mate, all the best. You've got stuff lined up. You've got things going on. Obviously, like I said, fingers crossed. You walk out at the first Pursuit, still holding the title belt and still holding it after the show as well. I think that's huge, man. I can't put over how big. Personally, as a fan, you being the champ of Pursuit is. I just think that screams awesomeness.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful that they put that trust in me so far, and long may it continue, hopefully. But yeah, it's been awesome.
Definitely, long may it continue. But yes, thank you for obviously to everybody watching this. Thank you for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe, do the normal stuff you do after watching a video on YouTube, and we will see you again very soon with more Pursuit talent. We've got Freaky Felicia coming up, and amongst a few others. So we will see you again very soon.